What's happening, beautiful people? Trumpeter Bobby Spellman here to welcome you to another exciting episode of Trumpet with Bob. Today I wanted to talk about the subtle art of vibrato on the trumpet. I've gotten a couple of questions about that in the comments section and some of my other videos, and I thought it would be about time to talk about the art of shaping the sound of your tone while you're playing the trumpet. It's taken me a minute to do a vibrato video, and I think one of the reasons I have been procrastinating on this one is because I grew up as a jazz trumpet player. I started out playing jazz music. I've learned a lot of the music that I know by ear, and I picked up many of the techniques that I've learned by really closely listening to some of my favorite musicians. And I think it's important to start off by saying that vibrato is very much a part of the style of any music that you're playing. It's a stylistic component, and it's an artistic choice. So, especially in jazz, there's no one perfect way to do it, and the way that you choose to use vibrato will have a big impact on your personal sound and your personal style. The other thing is, switching between styles of music, there are very different approaches to vibrato. So if you're playing classical music, for example, you may take a very different approach to vibrato than you would within a jazz context. So I will just put a disclaimer at the beginning of this video that this is going to apply to jazz music and other musics in that realm, or post-jazz styles, let's say, like funk and soul and R&B and other things that I'm personally familiar with. And if you wanted to get a little bit more of a rundown on how classical musicians choose to use vibrato to shape their tone, you're going to have to get it from somebody else, because I don't know the answer to that. And I will say one thing that you'll notice right off the bat is if you're using vibrato in a way that doesn't fit the style of the music that you're playing, it can really stand out like a sore thumb. So I've noticed very often people who start to play jazz will bring more of a classical vibrato sound into the music that they're playing, and it sounds sometimes very out of place. And if that's what you're going for, maybe that's what you want to do as an artist, and that's totally fine as well. Maybe you'll come up with that way of approaching jazz music with a more classical vibrato, and there's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes it can seem very out of place within the style of the music. So the most important thing I can tell you, and this is true of anything that you're doing on the trumpet, is to really listen to the great trumpet players, listen to some great recordings, and get a sense for the way that they use vibrato. So one thing that you'll notice, for example, is that there's a big difference between some of these different styles and approaches of using vibrato, and you can hear that if you listen to the difference in the way that, for example, Louis Armstrong or Roy Eldridge plays versus the way that Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw play. And there's sort of a different approach to that. We'll talk a little bit about some of the techniques that you can use to achieve some of those sounds as you listen into some of your jazz trumpet heroes in order to try to get a sense for where to place the vibrato and how to use it in your playing. So, without further ado, we're going to get into the two main ways that one might choose to use vibrato in a jazz trumpet setting, and then we'll gloss over the third way, which is almost never used. So, to begin, the first way that I learned to use vibrato, to do vibrato, to create the vibrato sound on the trumpet, is called hand vibrato. And that is to be distinguished from either lip or jaw vibrato, which are synonymous. But I'll start with hand vibrato because that's the one that I learned first. There are advantages and disadvantages to each of these approaches to vibrato, and you'll have to decide which one works best for you, and maybe they work differently in different contexts. So, to start, hand vibrato. In order to get the hand vibrato sound, this is going to sound like this. Let me give you a quick example first. So in order to create the vibrato sound with your hand, what I'm doing is I'm holding the trumpet with my thumb on the valve casing here, and my pinky right around the pinky ring, but that's a little bit less important. The most important thing is that you have your thumb right here on the valve casing. With your thumb, not your fingers. Your fingers are just going to look like my fingers are moving around, but what I'm really doing is gently shaking the trumpet back and forth using my thumb on the valve casing. Now, by gently moving the trumpet back and forth, that's going to very slightly change the pitch of the note that I'm playing, and that will give you the vibrato sound. It takes a little practice to get used to getting this, and you want to make sure that you're giving it enough of a shake that the audience is going to be able to perceive the vibrato on the other side of the room, but not so much that you're getting out of control, unless you're really going for that wild Louis Armstrong almost shake sound. So I'll give you a sense for how you can sort of shape that, the different ways that you can approach that. But the idea begins with just moving your thumb against the valve casing gradually in order to get that note to have a little bit of a waver in the pitch. Now you can decide how quickly or slowly you want to move that vibrato, and as you shape a particular note, you may move from slow to fast to get a different effect. So maybe something like this. Once again, it could be very subtle. Or you really go for it. You can start to hear that sounds a little bit more like an old school approach. You might hear that more in early jazz, trad jazz, and swing music, a little bit more of a... Whereas later on in the style of music, maybe more towards the 50s and beyond, you might get a more subtle sound. And that's going to change the way that you play. So that is hand vibrato. It's just a matter of moving the trumpet back and forth. You can practice that by just trying to keep that in time and just regularly shifting that pitch quickly as you go. And I think with a little practice, you will find that you can create that sound that you're looking for with the hand vibrato. Now, the second way, and perhaps the most popular way these days of creating the vibrato effect, is lip vibrato or jaw vibrato. And those are somewhat interchangeable. It just depends on how you do it. And with lip vibrato, all you're doing is slightly altering the position of your lips, your aperture, and the things going on in here in order to very subtly change the pitch. Now, if I do it without the trumpet, if I'm playing it, it's going to look like this. And you can see my jaws moving a little bit, but most of what's happening is right in here. Now, as I do that, I'm going to get a sound like this. So more modern trumpet players, people like Freddie Hubbard or Woody Shaw, would be more likely to use that lip or jaw vibrato approach. One of the things that I like about that in particular is you have a lot of control over the speed of the vibrato. So I can really focus in on the way that I want to shape a particular note and in how fast that vibrato wants to go. So that might sound something like this. I'll show you the difference in the way that I can speed up and slow down that vibrato. So just like with hand vibrato, it just takes a little practice to get used to trying to get a consistent speed in that wavering of the tone, in that very slight changing of the pitch in order to get the vibrato sound. Now, once again, I feel as though the lip or jaw vibrato approach gives me a lot of control, but I have heard tale of people getting to the point where they get so in the habit of using that kind of lip or jaw vibrato that as soon as the horn approaches their lips, they're already moving their lips around, ready to go. And if you overdo it, especially in a sort of jazz stylistic context, it can sound very out of place. So then you get something that might be like... What you'll notice in jazz is typically people will put vibrato at the end of a note, or if you're dealing with a ballad and you've got long lyrical phrases, you can use that vibrato to color a long note, but it typically is really more of an embellishment of the note. It's a little bit more of you put a little sheen on that note rather than it being an important or inextricable component in the note itself. And that just happens to be regarding, it just happens to be a part of the style of the music. So, the other thing to remember is, and you'll hear this as you listen to many of your favorite trumpet players, is that the approach to vibrato that each individual musician takes really has a big impact on the way that they play. So, for example, Miles Davis would use very little vibrato. He talks about that in his autobiography, a little bit about how he came to that approach, but you can hear it very clearly in his sound. He has a very straight tone, might use a little bit of vibrato at the end of a note, but isn't going to color his sound with very much vibrato. Now that is in contrast to, for example, Clifford Brown. You can check out one of my favorite examples of vibrato in jazz trumpet is Clifford Brown's beautiful solo on I Don't Stand a Ghost of a Chance with You from Max Roach and Brown and Roach Incorporated. Hold on, I'll put it right here. Boop, this is the thing. Check out this album. If you don't know this one, give it a listen, but there's a beautiful track on there. In fact, I'll put a link in the description down below so you can check it out, but you can really hear the beautiful way that Clifford Brown uses vibrato in his sound. You can also listen to any of the great jazz trumpet players and really pick out where they're using that vibrato, and as you continue to practice, I think that you'll find intuitively you're able to find those places where vibrato makes sense to you. So for myself personally, I very much will use a little bit of vibrato at the end of notes from time to time, but I've found over the years that it's really more of an intuitive artistic decision rather than a very conscious effort. But in the beginning, you can really practice the, fine-tuning these different approaches to vibrato, and then once you get a handle on that, I think it will become a very organic part of your playing, as long as you're listening to other musicians and really trying to shape your own sound in the way that you think best represents who you are as a human being and what you're trying to say about the human condition and the world that you live in and, the musical world in general. So vibrato, like all these other techniques in trumpet, are a way to convey emotion and ideas and concepts through sound. And with a little practice, I'm sure you can incorporate that into your playing and have a good old time shaping your tone and trying to get a beautiful sound using the vibrato technique on the trumpet. All right, gang, hope that was helpful in your quest for musical excellence. If you have any questions on that, put them in the comments below and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. If you have any questions about other techniques on trumpet that you'd like to learn a little bit more about, you can put them in the comments and I'll do my very best to make a video on those subjects that are most perplexing or mysterious or just need a little bit more attention in the internet world. All right, well, have a wonderful time practicing and I'll see you on the next one. See ya! Wait, hold it. Mabel the cat reminded me, I almost forgot, about the third kind of vibrato that I didn't mention because I don't know that anybody uses it. I've heard tale of people using it, but much like Bigfoot or the Yeti or the Loch Ness Monster or the Dingoneck, in the Congo it's a mysterious concept that maybe is used and perhaps is not. That is diaphragm vibrato, which is a misnomer because you don't really use your diaphragm, you use your abdominal muscles to get the vibrato sound. Now that is used often by flute players. It's sort of a different approach to vibrato. I've heard tale of trumpet players using it, but I certainly haven't. I don't know anybody who does, and I don't know how to do it. So you might have to look at a different video in order to figure that out. All right, gang, see ya! Trumpet with Bob. All right, friends, thanks so much for checking out this video. I hope it helps in your pursuit of the majesty of musical self-expression. If you like what we're doing here, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Big thanks to all the new subscribers. We really appreciate your support, and we're going to keep putting out some new videos for you. The Ridgewood School of Music is now accepting new students for lessons online as well as in person in the Brooklyn, Queens, and greater New York City area. You can find us on our website at www.ridgewoodschoolofmusic.com, and you can send us a message and we would love to help you achieve all of your musical dreams. For some more musical fun, you can also follow me, Bobby Spellman, on Instagram @BobSpellman, or in any of the other social media platforms listed in the description below. Thanks again for checking out this video, happy practicing, and we'll catch you next time.